These pretty textured socks have a hidden message. They are comprised of small triangles facing down and up. They are the alchemical symbols for water and fire. So whether you connect to the elements or not, you have to agree that the pattern or the surface that they create is rather beautiful and unique. And once you get familiar with the different triangle patterns in here, you can easily customize the socks to your liking, using them in different order, adding some, removing some. That way you can also alter the length of the leg and of course the foot to fit your feet or whoever you're knitting them for the best. Hi, I'm Paulina, also known as Lina. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my new sock design, Water and Fire. So these socks have a ribbed cuff, and I used a 1x1 ribbing because that's what I just find the neatest in my bit of knitting handwriting. You're free to use whatever rib you prefer, whether that's knitting through the back loop, 2x2, all is good. It's just as long as it fits the stitch count, of course. Again, you can customize the length of the rib if you like it longer or shorter. Just keep in mind that any alterations you make to the measurements of the sock measurements given in the pattern, it will affect your yardage. Now I use just 50 grams for my pair. This is the smallest size. But even with the larger sizes, if you have 100 grams skein of sock yarn, it does leave room for some adjustments. Of course, if you want knee-high socks, yeah, get that extra skein. But smaller alterations should be possible with the regular 100 gram skein. And then they have a textured leg with different versions of the downward and upwards triangle. Now they aren't obvious, the triangles I mean, but I rather wanted them to be kind of hidden. If you use a solid color, of course they will be more visible than in my speckled skein. They create this sort of eye-catching pattern where you see the different sort of stripes that they create, the vertical stripes that they create, and it's just a lovely sort of softly textured pattern. Like I said, the length of the leg can be adjusted just by repeating more or less of whatever section you want of the triangle pattern. Now that is charted, so it's easy to see where you can add rows. And then the socks have a heel flap and gusset construction. Now the heel flap is created with slipped stitches, and then that pattern is mimicked on the front of the gusset. And this is just mimicking, it's not identical. So this one doesn't use slip stitches, so it's not thicker than any other parts of the sock. But again, it just creates a bit more interest to the sock and brings the lovely flat pattern to the front as well. And then it has a stockinette stitch base and more texture on the top. Now it's not identical to the cuff pattern, and the socks come in 3 sizes. I've created separate charts for each size just so that the stitch pattern looks as similar as it can on all the different sizes. On the foot section, the leg is the same for all the sizes. And then it has toe decreases and the final stitches are grafted together. So a very traditional cuff down sock. Like I mentioned, there are 3 sizes. So, and this is knit with fingering weight yarn. So you've got the traditional 56, 64, and 72 stitches. And again, the foot length is similarly adjustable as in the leg. The easiest way is to see the triangle patterns as 4-row increments. so you can add or remove any as needed. And overall, you can customize the legs. Since like I mentioned, it has different versions of the downward and upward pointing triangle, so you can just sprinkle them on as you wish. Add more of certain kinds and less of the others, or just sort of mix and match them as you wish. So there are plenty of opportunities on how to make the socks your own. The yarn that I used is something that I picked up last summer on my holiday because I forgot all of my knitting at home. Yes, this did happen. So we drove our car to the ferry in Turku and then onwards from there to southern Sweden. So I just forgot to bring the bags into our car. They were just waiting patiently for me on the edge of our couch where I left them the evening before. We had a very early morning when we left, so I guess I was just too tired. So anyway, I went to a yarn store and I found this yarn. It's Meditating in Mumbai sock yarn by Bestmore. It's hand-dyed yarn from Norway. It's the normal 75 merino, 25 polyamide. And this is what it looks like when it's balled. Yeah, so I did this on my holiday, so all I had was my hands. So this is hand wound instead of my usual cakes. That's this kind of sea green with speckles of brown and blue. Now sadly, these don't seem to have colorway names. This is just color 104. But it worked quite nicely with these socks. I had intended to use another yarn for these, and I had kind of an idea for these socks, but basically these were born while I was sitting in the car on a road trip. And I'm tempted to knit another pair immediately to see how the stitch pattern works with different kinds of yarns. And like I said, I only used half a skein for the smallest size. And the element of water is represented by a downward pointing triangle. And it symbolizes cleansing, intuition, and our emotions. And it's often linked to feminine qualities. And the downward pointing triangle itself can be sometimes used to represent the feminine. And when I talk of feminine and masculine, I don't mean the genders. I just mean that that's how certain qualities are classified, but they're not gender specific. We all have feminine and masculine qualities. And then the element of fire is represented by an upward pointing triangle, and that represents power, passion, energy, and things that are often described as masculine qualities. The pattern for these socks is now out on Ravelry. I'll link it down below so you can go and get your copy of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you soon again.